been an interesting time putting this together, and it's been something that I've been working on for a number of different years and adding different content to this as experience brings us forward. And really, a lot of the content comes from one of the classes I teach at the corporate college, and the megatrends are really affecting how we lead, how we work in every environment. And I wanted to bring them to light here, and hopefully you can use them to help explain to folks some of the things that are going on. First, let's take a look just at the concept of a megatrend. And I define it as a systemic transformational change that challenges tradition. And really what we're talking about there is, from a systemic standpoint, these are universal in scope. These have broad application in a number of different areas, and it's not just one industry or one service sector that they are affecting. However, they're affecting all of us in a variety of different ways. The second part is transformational. And these changes that we are dealing with are changing everything in a broad sense. It's not a developmental change or an incremental change. It's transformational. And the things that are going on are making everything look different to all of us. And they are really challenging the traditions that we've had in organizations for the last couple hundred years, and making those beliefs and customs that we have all grown up with, or many of us have grown up with, I guess it depends on our age, that says, we need to look at things differently. And it's having an impact on what it is we do. And that impact is either disruptive or it's an opportunity, depending on how we look at things. And I hope that today we take a look at these as opportunities. So first of all, why do we care? Well, this is just a typical day at the beach somewhere in the world. And we care because there are about 7 billion people in the world right now, and that continues to grow. And we really are looking at things as a worldwide economy. And there's scarcity of resources. There is also scarcity of people, and there's a scarcity of knowledge. And one of the things that is driving many organizations is a scarcity of engagement. We have a world economy where we are faced with many things that I'm going to cover in a second. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in our organizations is to really engage people. And why do we need to engage people? Well, we have a fusion of variables with interdependent complexities that's going on. And if you think about every job, every function within every organization, it's not a task to do anymore. There are tasks with a number of different variables, and those variables are interdependent. I was thinking of an organization that used to be fairly simple, like a restaurant. And the restaurant would greet people through the door, maybe take phone calls and reservations, and offer their services. Nowadays, a restaurant has to have a website, has to be able to take online reservations, may take online orders and then have the order ready when we arrive at that restaurant. And that impacts how they order their food, how they cook their food, how they hire people, how they schedule people. Even something that used to be fairly simple and straightforward is now a complex fusion of variables. And we have to operate within those variables, and the variables keep increasing as we bring in more and more integrated and interconnected technologies. In many of the classes and experiences that we have, it's interesting when we take a break now, people don't get up and go to the restroom and chat. People pull out their smartphones and their tablets and check up on life. And the integrated technologies are everywhere. One of my clients runs a manufacturing facility, and we were having a discussion the other day about how critical it is that the data that the tow motor driver collects is accurate, because if it's not accurate, that affects the supply chain. It affects ordering. It affects manufacturing. Every part of the life in an organization is interconnected, and they're interdependent on each other. And so we've got to have a high degree of accuracy in order to operate efficiently. And then the third part, which really is something that we haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to other than in the last few years, are the changing needs of people. People want work that matters and has purpose anymore. People are not just working for a paycheck. And many of the folks that I work with have told me, and they do, leave a job if they're not feeling fulfilled. And so these are the types of things that the leaders and the managers today are being faced with on an everyday basis. And that's where we get back to this concept that engagement is so critical. So we must lead and we must manage at the same time. And when we manage, we want to manage to a task. We need to get things done. However, when we lead, we must elicit the willing cooperation and collaboration of our stakeholder community. And we need to do that cooperation and collaboration because things are complex, because things are interdependent, because things matter, and no one person can get it all done at one time. We have to work together in order to solve problems for our stakeholders and to create opportunities and value in our stakeholder environment. And also, as one of my clients said, I just got to get things done, and they have to be done well. And that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing. I thought, that is something that I've heard over and over again. We've got to get things done, and we've got to get things done well. And that requires engaging people. And the people, when they're engaged, can solve the problems of all the variables that come up. They can solve the problems and the issues with all the different integrated technologies. And when they do that, they feel fulfilled because they're focused on delivering a higher purpose to the organization, solving stakeholder needs, creating opportunities, and there's a sense of purpose in what it is they do. So what's the business case? There's got to be a dollars and cents reason to pay attention to some of this stuff. So I wanted to briefly go over this for you. In one study that was done by a university in Pennsylvania that then came out with the conscious capitalism system, they looked at cumulative returns of organizations over a 14-year period. And the S&P 500 over that 14-year period returned 118% to their shareholders. The firms of endearment, or the conscious capitalism organizations who were focused on higher purpose and a conscious culture and meeting the needs of stakeholders, they returned 1,600%, over 1,600% in the same 14-year period. And that also was checked against the Good to Great companies from Jim Collins' book, which is a super book, Good to Great. Those organizations that were referenced in that book returned 263% over the same 14-year period. So even though profit was not the focus of the firms of endearment organizations, they were the ones that turned the best profitability and return to their shareholders. And we know who some of these companies are, and some of the key reasons that those companies and organizations were able to return such large amounts is that they had lower marketing costs because they turned their customers into raving fans. Their customers do most of the selling for them. And customers keep coming back. They don't have to spend the money to go get new customers. They have lower turnover. The turnover in any organization is very expensive, from the hiring process to the onboarding process, and then the process of getting someone acclimated to a job so that they can perform that job well. One of the companies, I love this story, on the West Coast is a pizza joint. And I always ask people, what do you think the typical turnover is in a pizza place? And it really is over 100% a year. And these guys on the West Coast take care of each other. They take care of their stakeholders. They take care of their employees. And they enjoy a turnover of 6%. And you can imagine the customer service that can be delivered in that environment, the lower operating costs in that environment, and also their ability to focus on their stakeholders and solving the needs of those stakeholders and delivering to them exceptional service. And another aspect of it is just increased employee engagement and employees who are willing and capable and experienced enough to be able to go far and above what the stakeholder typically needs so that they can drive value in that engagement with the stakeholder. Another study that came out a number of years ago by Cotter and Heskett when they were both at Harvard really outlined some of the business case variables and why it's important to look at culture. The stock price of organizations that pay attention to their culture went up over 900% versus 74% in an 11-year period. Net income 756% versus 1%. Revenue 682 versus 166, and the workforce expanded 282% versus 36%. The numbers really are rather compelling. So what are some of these megatrends that are going on? And in the handout that you can get from Jim Gertner, if you send him your email, he will send you the PDF that has these details in it, and I'm just going to go through some of the parts of these megatrends. And in there, I've grouped the megatrends that have emerged over the last couple of years in 4 different areas: the organization, the people and the culture, the management and leadership, and market. And it's always fun to go through this process with others because other megatrends do emerge. So let's take a look at some of these. From an organization standpoint, here's just a couple. And at the top, there's the top and the left side. There's the old way, or the historic perspective of looking at things. And then the right-hand column is the emerging and what we call conscious perspective, the needs and the expectations of the market and the stakeholders. So in the organization, it used to be that we had a hierarchical and matrix structure, and you could put together an org chart, and the people at the top had more power than the people at the bottom. And that has not obviously gone away completely. However, in this environment that we live in now, we have more of a networked and complex, interdependent kind of structure that works together in teams where borders have been disappearing. And we work focused on solving stakeholder problems and creating opportunities, which then it results, though, in a messier and more fluid, dynamic environment than ever before. And that's something that can drive leaders a little crazy because they really can't participate in everything that's going on. The second one here is just the goal used to be operational efficiency. How do we drive cost out of the operation? And really now the goal that we have is to drive value for our stakeholders and an optimum end-user experience. And this is exacerbated by the fact that we have social media and reviews and online transparency for pretty much everything we do with everybody. And if we're not driving an optimum end-user experience, then other people know about it. And we then have to spend a lot of time and money and energy to overcome it. And the operational efficiency, that's a given anymore. What we have to do is do a good job with our stakeholders. And the next section is people and culture. One of the biggest changes that has happened recently is we've gone from a me, management and shareholders win at the expense of others, to we. The stakeholders all win on a transparent and equitable basis. And when I talk about stakeholders, stakeholders are shareholders, employees, the finance people, management, partners, government, even competitors can sometimes be a stakeholder in an interesting twist of environment in this wild and crazy world that we live in. And one of the rules in developing a conscious business, and actually one of the key rules, is that no decision shall be made to the benefit of one stakeholder group and then to the detriment of another, thereby creating a sustainable business. And when we do that, what happens is that we set ourselves up for what we call virtuous win-win cycles over time. And everyone wants to stay invested and interested in the organization because there's something in it for everybody. So number 12 here is it used to be that time in the job equal to success. And really now the difference is my ability to work with my team, which then enhances my ability to drive value and make a difference for stakeholders, is what makes success. Because remember, we're dealing with all of these different interdependent variables and technologies and whatnot. And so I need to be able to work with my team in order to move forward. And so, again, that goes from the me to we concept. And if there's any others that come up for you, let me know. We do have something in the chat window here. How have the needs of your stakeholders changed in the past few years? That's a very interesting question. Stakeholders are looking for a variety of different things from the organizations that they work with. They want the organization, many stakeholders want the organization to care for their people, and some of that in and of itself is actually a selfish aspect on the part of the stakeholder because they want to know that the organization will be around. Organizations that don't keep their eye on the bigger picture, which includes taking care of the wider stakeholder community, tend to drop out of sight and their significance goes away. So people want to work with folks who have longevity. And it's the organizations that take a look at the wider stakeholder picture and are able to be dynamic in the market are the ones who are going to win versus the ones who are trying to control everything in the old way. So I hope that helps answer that question. Management and leadership standpoint, the old way was that respect and trust for the manager were just a given because people were in an authority figure. Nowadays, what I'm finding is that unconditional respect is generally given to people on high-performing teams. However, trust is earned. And people will trust me until I break that trust many times. However, the initial trust is a little careful. And people want to know that I am trustworthy. We want to know that other people are trustworthy. So there's a difference, and understanding that difference between respect and trust is very important. And that can sometimes lead to a huge change in a relationship. And it's one of the things that gets taught in the classes that I have at the corporate college is that difference between respect and trust and how to work better with both of them because they're both critical. However, they are different, and sometimes people get the differences confused. The second part here under number 23 is that we used to work with an authoritarian leadership style, and it was what the leader says goes. And really what's changed here in driving a collaborative and synergistic leadership style is the true job of the leader. And the true job of the leader nowadays is to step back, look at the big picture, and make sure that people are understanding of the higher purpose, understanding of stakeholder needs. And my job as the leader is to remove obstacles and barriers so that the team can solve the problems and create the opportunities for the stakeholders versus tell people what to do. In fact, one of the other changes that's going on, and I think it's listed somewhere here, is that the boss doesn't always know how to do the job anymore. It's the people in the job that really know how to do the job. And that has changed the role of the leader and the manager from being authoritative to being enabling. And then the fourth part that we look at is from the market. We used to have a predictable needs of the customer in the market. We really knew what they were looking for from a 2, 3, 5-year view. And now the market is changing so fast, and the real-time needs are dynamically changing because of technology and so forth, that we have to be creative and innovative in going after things. The difference that I say between creativity and innovation is that creativity is the idea. The innovation is the commercialization, the ability to take an idea and move it forward. And any idea nowadays is complex and is full of interdependent complexities. So that affects our supply chain, and our supply chains have to be flexible. And we have FedEx to really thank for that. They came up with the concept years ago when it has to be there tomorrow, and so we've gotten used to we want it tomorrow. And now Amazon is even changing that paradigm. And in some cities, they're guaranteeing 2-hour delivery of thousands and thousands of different products. In fact, I don't know if you saw the report I think it was over the weekend, that the folks at Amazon for this Christmas and holiday season in 2016 enjoyed between 47 and 48% of all online sales in the U.S., and that was between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So to have a huge market share like that is pretty impressive. The other thing, though, is that we have a huge population that is used to just-in-time and almost real-time delivery based on what they're looking at, and that's fundamentally changing how we see things. Number 34 is from a diversity standpoint, and we used to have pretty well-defined markets. Now our markets are changing on a regular basis, and as more people come online with the Internet, in fact, I don't know if you know, but Facebook and Google both have active projects going on to bring online the 4 billion people who do not have access to the Internet right now. That's going to change the diversity of the markets in an incredible way. And we need to pay attention to those different changing needs, those market needs and the market complexities that we're going to continue to deal with. So those are some of the detailed megatrends, and again, there's about 36 of them detailed in the handout that you can get from Jim. If you don't have it now, he can send it to you later as a PDF. And I hope you can use these, and if you've got ideas, feel free to send myself or Jim an email, and this list continues to morph as we gain more input from folks looking at these different megatrends. So leaders must elicit the willing cooperation and collaboration of their stakeholder community in order to deal with the changing times of the market. And that takes conscious effort, and it takes thinking. It takes thinking beyond what we really have seen in the past, and we need to take the experience that we have and turn it into wisdom in a very different world. So thank you for coming today. And if you've got any questions, Jim, I think you could open up the phones, or people can send them in via chat.